Not quite sure what's going on in my upper hair section, but can we just pretend that we like it for the day, please? Hey there guys, my name's Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for another terrifying episode of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. You're welcome, that one was for you. If you like all things true crime, supernatural, UFO, conspiracy theory, and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you every weekend with our True Crime Killer Weekends, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with our Weirdo Wednesdays, where we'll discuss something spooky I've heard. I will leave a small disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. It does involve details of violent crime and also crimes against women. If that's a trigger point for you, then please feel free to turn away now. You may be noticing my new accessory, which leads me to introduce you to this week's amazing sponsor. GlassesUSA.com offer over 9,000 different styles of prescription and non-prescription sunglasses and glasses at affordable prices. You can choose a classic style from their in-house brands such as Amelia E and Muse. Or if you're a designer buff, then they also stock brands such as Gucci, Oakley and Ray-Ban with up to 70% off normal retail prices. Who says you can't be fashionable and affordable? All of this can be done whilst chilling on the sofa with basic prescription lenses starting at only $30. You guys know I've suffered from headaches for what feels like forever. So sitting in front of a computer screen for hours editing YouTube videos always leaves me with that worried feeling that my next migraine is just around the corner. But when I heard about GlassesUSA.com and their range of blue light blocking glasses, I was so excited. Blue light glasses are ideal if you're working from home or the office, or even if you're just looking to protect your eyes against that summer sun with glare prevention and UV blocking. I cannot recommend the blue light blocking range enough, you guys. My headaches are less severe because I'm not straining my eyes as much, and when I'm working, I'm finally enjoying what I do again. With such a varied choice on GlassesUSA.com, I found it a little difficult to figure out what suited my face, what would suit me. But don't fret, my little gremlins, they have that figured out too. With their amazing online virtual try-on tool, you can pop a picture of yourself into the system and actually see what styles suit you without ever having to step inside a busy retail store. The glasses I chose for myself really reflect me and my style and personality. Firstly, I chose the Atoto Atrium glasses in gold because I love the fact they had that vintage feel. They're just so lightweight and I can wear them every day. My next selection was made in seconds when I went for these beautiful Maguire glasses in red and pink. They're just such a cute feminine accessory. And of course, these are the famous blue light blocking lenses. And finally, the glamorous and cool Elliot sunglasses by Muse. These just get me so excited for the summer and I feel like a proper Bond girl wearing them. So if you're looking for a risk-free shopping experience, then follow the link in the description box today and visit GlassesUSA.com. That's GlassesUSA.com, where I'll be seeing you later. So without further ado, my glasses and I are large and in charge, and we're here to tell you a true crime story. 2022 is well underway and a lot of people are looking forward to the future. One thing I know here in the UK we're looking forward to is the Beijing Winter Olympics. Now, I'm not going to kid on that I know anything about sport because I don't, but one thing I do know is that these athletes, for us mere mortals, are heroes. Men, women and children look up to them. Major brands will use them as a tool to sell their products. We set these athletes impossible standards. We put them on the highest pedestal so that if they even make the slightest wrong move, we crucify them for it. To us and many young fans out there, these people are gods. So what do we do when one of them does something unspeakable? Do we follow them blindly, or do we ask ourselves the question, how well can we ever really know the rich and famous? In tonight's episode, we will discuss the murder of Reeva Steenkamp. Hero or homicide? Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp was born on the 19th of August 1983 in Cape Town, South Africa. She was the first child between her mother and father, Barry and June Steenkamp. She did have two older siblings from her parents' previous marriages, but for all intents and purposes, she was raised as an only child. As a young girl, Reeva moved to Port Elizabeth with her family, and her father, Barry, a horse trainer, instilled his love in all things horsey in his youngest daughter. Because of this, Reeva became an experienced equestrian, and her love for animals only grew. Her mother actually had around 6 dogs in the house, so it was safe to say that they were an animal-loving family. As Reeva grew up, she became more and more interested about the world around her. And it's no secret that South Africa has long been plagued by violence. If you were to take a stroll in Johannesburg in 1984, it wouldn't be strange to see someone toting a rifle. With Nelson Mandela in prison until 1990, tensions between white and black residents in South Africa was at an all-time high. People of colour were victims of a vicious apartheid, which saw them segregated to the outskirts of town and living in slums with no access to proper medical care or even education. The white residents of the big cities of South Africa were fed racist propaganda which led to fear on both sides. Businesses could refuse to serve you merely because of the colour of your skin, and God help you if you wanted to socialise out with your own race. Because of these outdated and bigoted restrictions, South Africa was ousted by other progressive countries. Trade to South Africa was limited and they were cut off from any sporting events. Sadly for these communities, racial violence wasn't the only thing they had to be concerned about. Gender-based violence was and still is a massive issue in South Africa. Women were treated like objects, breeders, and if they didn't fit into the societal gender-based roles, they were brutalised for it. This didn't go unnoticed by a young Reeva, and she was often extremely outspoken on the matter. In fact, she would later become an advocate on the issue later in her life. A compassionate person by nature, Reeva left a mark on all who knew her. Her mother said that she had the most infectious laugh. She would just throw her head back and reveal a beautiful set of perfect white teeth. You couldn't help but laugh along with her. Reeva was also a generous and selfless friend. One of her schoolmates from St. Dominic Priory High School remembered her friend fondly as the only girl who would take the time out to learn a new language so that this girl didn't feel excluded when she only knew a little bit of English. This inner beauty soon began to shine out to her exterior, and when Reeva was in her adolescence, it was impossible to ignore the fact she turned into a stunning young woman. Like, seriously guys, I know I say this quite a lot, but it's very clear to see that God does have his favourites. I see photos of Reeva as a teen, this glamorous, beautiful, naturally pretty young girl, and then I look at pictures of me as a teenager. Buck teeth, I still hadn't grown into my jaw yet. And don't even get me started on my inverted chest. But not our Reeva. And at the age of 15, the then raven-haired beauty decided to apply for a local modelling competition. With her smouldering eyes and petite-toned figure, it was clear to see that Reeva Steenkamp was destined to be a model. But she also didn't want to give up on her education, so for now the world of endorsements and pictorials would have to wait because Reeva was going to law school. Whilst attending the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in 2002, Reeva attracted a lot of friends to her. Of course, she studied hard and put a lot of work into her academics, but her and her core friendship group would also have pizza parties and hot tub parties to celebrate the passing of exams. Her friends, whilst noting that she was very generous and carefree, Reeva was extremely choosy with who she trusted with her heart. Of course, she had friends that were boys, but it seemed that no boy could manage to break down the walls of Fort Reeva. She was far too focused on her studies. A naturally driven young woman, Reeva decided that after school she was going to give the world of competitive modelling a chance. You see, the year prior to that, Reeva had been in a bad accident. The 20-year-old had received a devastating injury when she was thrown from her own horse, resulting in a broken back. Because of this, Reeva had to retrain herself on how to walk again. But being the positive and optimistic person that she was able to focus on how lucky she was to be alive rather than her restricting circumstances. So Reeva did what she did best, and she slapped a smile on her face and grinned through the pain of her rehabilitation. It was actually during her rehabilitation that she decided that she wanted to try modelling again, because she never wanted to look back with any regrets. Life was clearly too short. After her recovery, Reeva had a total makeover. She dyed her hair blonde, she lost a ton of weight, and she got a beautiful new California tan, just in time to audition for spreads in FHM and roles on TV. Third time was the charm when she auditioned for the Lads Mag, and pretty soon she was gracing their front cover. In her peak physical fitness, Reeva was an ideal candidate for catalogue and magazine modelling, but with her 5'7" stature, which in the modelling world is actually considered small. Oh god, I wonder what they would say about my 5'1". I have a lovely personality though. Because of her small stature, Reeva wasn't eligible for runway modelling, but she didn't care. With contracts with Avon, FHM, Toyota, and many more, she felt extremely fulfilled. Having moved to Johannesburg to further her modelling career, she was pretty soon rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous, and many of you seemed to catch the eye of our gorgeous young Reeva. But she was very cautious in love. As we said, she had been burned before. Reeva had actually dated a jockey that she'd met through her father's work, and he was said to be quite controlling. Jockey Wayne Agrella was said to have been very verbally abusive to Reeva, something that she never quite gave back. He would later deny the claims that their relationship was so toxic, but he would let slip that in the 6 years they were together, Reeva was more a passive person and hated confrontation. But the ever positive and optimistic Reeva, despite having a bump in the road previously, chose to give love another chance, and she chose to do that with an entrepreneur. Warren Loud, the CEO and founder of a vegetable exporting company, swept young Reeva off her feet, and the two actually lived together within their 5-year relationship. Unfortunately, when it became clear that the two were on different emotional paths, they decided to amicably split, but they remained friends. At the time of the breakup, Reeva's career was going from success to success, and she was soon a well-known name in South Africa. She was enjoying single life, she was 29, and she was doing so well in her career that she was able to send money back to her parents as a thank you for their support over the years. But not satisfied with just one successful career, Reeva decided in 2011 she was going to register to take the bar, which is a law degree exam. If she passed and was successful, this meant that she would be qualified by 2013. When asked about her law career and how much of a shift it was from her modelling job, she said that she wanted to ensure that when the modelling jobs dried up, as we all know they will, because apparently old people don't wear clothes. allegedly. Reeva wanted to make sure when that day came, she had a fallback career and something that she knew she had a passion for. So here she was, this gorgeous, intelligent young woman, and women like that don't go unnoticed for very long. So in 2012, one of Reeva's girlfriends said that she had a mutual friend that was dying to meet her. And that friend, ladies and gentlemen, was Oscar Pistorius. In 2012, Oscar Pistorius was a renowned Paralympian who had actually had both of his legs amputated below the knee because he was born with a birth defect, which left him with no bone matter below the shin. Oscar didn't let this stand in his way, and he never saw himself as disabled or challenged in any way. Despite a difficult home life, which saw his mother and father separate when he was a young boy, and his father grew more and more absent from his life, Oscar knew that if he wanted to make something of himself, he had to fight bloody hard to do it. Whilst attending boarding school in Pretoria, he was a fan of playing rugby, and many of his friends on the field said you would never even know that he was different from any of the other boys because he played like a warrior. Sadly, in 2002, at the age of 15, Oscar lost his mother, and it's not quite clear as to how his mother died. It is classed as a mystery illness. In Oscar's biography, he states that his mother was misdiagnosed by the hospital with hepatitis, which then led to a brain hemorrhage. However, in a BBC documentary, it's heavily hinted that his mother was suffering from extreme jaundice, and it is said that she was possibly an alcoholic, which could have meant her yellow skin tone was due to liver failure. Whatever the cause of death, Oscar took the news understandably extremely hard, and with no emotional connection with his father, Oscar really relied on his brother and sister at this difficult time. In his last few years at school, Oscar dedicated his time to athletics and impressed one of his teachers so much that he thought he would see just how capable Oscar was. So he arranged a few laps around the pool, a couple of push-ups, and even a run around the school's own track. Well, who could have known that this little run around the track would change Oscar's life forever? As he was driven and hungry for success, it's no surprise that he excelled quickly. Not only did a 17-year-old Oscar run at the 2004 Beijing Paralympics, he also won a gold and bronze medal. It really puts life into perspective when I remember what I was doing at 17. I was deciding whether to go for blue braces or purple. Hello from the other side. By the time the young athlete was 21, he'd actually won 6 gold medals. He had a stunning home in South Africa, but what he didn't have was a lover to share it with. Enter Reeva Steenkamp. The relationship got off to a kind of surreal start for Reeva. They were barely past introductions when Oscar invited Reeva to the South Africa Sports Awards. And when you see the videos of them, Reeva an absolute vision in a pink fringe mini dress and Oscar looking dapper in his black tie, you think to yourself, they're laughing a little bit, but you can see that twinge of awkwardness, but don't they make a pretty picture? Little could we have known that only 3 months later, this stunning young couple would be the subject of another round of photos. Crime scene photos. The relationship between Oscar and Reeva was fiery, to say the least, and even though the young couple cared for each other, it was quite clear to friends that Reeva's passive behaviour and Oscar's sometimes aggressive behaviour wasn't really a good match. In the BBC documentary, which can I just say is heavily biased towards Team Pistorius, Oscar's friends would actually talk about how angry he could get sometimes. For an example, his road rage. They said that sometimes good fun-loving Oscar, if someone was driving very slow in front of him or had forgotten to signal, Oscar would chase them down in his car and even, LOL, try and run them off the road. When his friend is talking about this to the documentary maker, he's giggling away as if that's totally normal behaviour. I have to admit that I can't say that my fiancé has ever tried to run someone off the road in a playful game of why are you driving so slow? Because he's not a killer. Text messages between Reeva and Oscar would also hint at some definite dysfunction. After attending a friend's engagement party, Reeva sent Oscar this WhatsApp message. Reeva would also say of this weekend that she had never been spoken to that disturbingly the way Oscar spoke to her that night. For me, the don't chew gum and the accusation of her flirting with her friend's husband, it's just controlling red flags everywhere. Even more worrying, these messages were sent literally only 2 weeks before Reeva would be found murdered in Oscar's home. It was the 13th of February and Reeva had made some exclusive plans for she and Oscar. In the morning, they went to get some protein shakes and later she planned to make a nice surprise dinner for the two of them to celebrate Valentine's Day. However, what would happen next would be up for debate for years to come and would leave Oscar Pistorius as suspect number 1. Reeva texted her best friend and roommate to say that she wouldn't be travelling home from Oscar's that night. She was far too tired, it was too late, so she was just going to spend the night there. Little did they know that only 12 hours later, that same roommate would be IDing her dead body. We know at some point Oscar Pistorius claimed to have gotten out of bed without his prosthetics on whilst Reeva lay asleep in bed next to him. He said that there was 2 patio doors which led out to a balcony right beside the bed. On that balcony, he had placed 2 large fans in between the patio doors. He said he did this because the air conditioning would mess with his sinuses and that way it was fresh air coming through the fan into the bedroom. To me, personally, that doesn't sound too suspicious because I'm sure we've all been on one of those cheap package holidays with the air conditioning above your bed and when you get back home, you sound like a 50-year-old chain smoker. Oscar claimed that whilst he was moving the fans, Reeva managed to slip out of the room unnoticed as she walked down the corridor to the couple's bathroom. The bathroom was separated into 2 separate sections. In the main section, which was open plan from the corridor in the home, was a bathtub, a mirror, and also a sink. In the separate area, there was a locked door and a toilet, so like a little loo area that you could go into the toilet for some privacy. The window in the main area of the bathroom was said to be extremely noisy, and I've seen videos of it. It does make quite a sound. So Oscar said he heard the sound of this window being opened, and thinking that Reeva was still asleep next to him, he thought there was now an intruder in his home. Having grown up and been fed stories about break-ins all his childhood and that his mother would sleep with a gun beneath her pillow. Because of this fear that was already instilled in him, Oscar instinctively grabbed his gun and started walking on his stumps along to the bathroom. He said at this point he was shouting to Reeva to call the police, but didn't think anything of it when she didn't respond. She didn't respond because she wasn't in the bedroom. She was in the bathroom. As Oscar stumbled along the pitch black corridor, he said that he heard the bathroom cubicle door slam shut and lock, and he believed that this was the intruder trying to hide themselves within their home. He said that he shouted to the intruder as a warning and then began to fire shots, 4 exactly, into the toilet door. Moments later, his neighbour, who was a doctor, would discover Oscar in the foyer of his home crying over Reeva's deceased body. As investigators arrived on the scene, so did Oscar's family. The first story that came from Camp Pistorius was that Reeva had climbed through the bathroom window to surprise her boyfriend on Valentine's Day when he then mistook her for an intruder and shot her. And this was a story that the media ran with. Here they were talking about another tragic incident caused by the fear and danger of a horrible place like South Africa. But that wasn't quite true, and everyone learned this when law enforcement made an impactful statement. Police refuted claims instantly that this was a case of mistaken identity, and even hinted that prior phone calls had been made to police from that residence in the nature of domestic violence. Because of these new allegations, many people changed from poor Oscar to what happened to Reeva. After a sweep of Oscar's home, investigators were closer to finally finding out that answer. Firstly, the scene was a bloodbath. Then next to the broken down bathroom door, you had a cricket bat, which investigators assumed had been used to break down the bathroom door. The bathroom door itself had 4 bullet holes in it, and inside the bathroom was a magazine rack that had fell over. We then have Reeva's body itself, and not only was she carried into the main entrance of the home by Oscar, but she also appeared to have been redressed. The black vest top that Reeva was found wearing didn't match the bullet holes in her body, and it led many to believe that if Oscar was in such a great state of shock after his accidental shooting, why did he have time to redress his partner? We then had the cricket bat that Oscar claimed he had used to break down the door when he realised that Reeva was in the bathroom. He had also claimed that when he realised it could possibly be Reeva behind that door, he'd gone into the bedroom and put on his prosthetics. However, crime scene investigators disagreed with us because of the height of the marks on the door. They believed that when Oscar broke the door down with the cricket bat, he was still on his stumps. Oscar claimed that the couple, mind you, on Valentine's Day, went to sleep at around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. I don't know, maybe athletes go to their bed very early. But the food found in Reeva's stomach would suggest otherwise, suggesting that she had eaten at 1 a.m. Another statement that contradicted his story was a neighbour named Estelle who said she heard the couple loudly arguing at 1 a.m. Upon the police search, some of Reeva's belongings were oddly placed in the bedroom. All of her clothes from the previous night before were packed neatly into her overnight bag, except from her jeans, which were laying on the floor. Investigators believed that this could possibly have meant that Reeva was trying to leave and trying to put on her jeans when Oscar decided he would stop her. Oscar claimed that the reason Reeva's jeans were out on display was because he was using them to cover a blue LED light on a stereo that was annoying him, so he couldn't sleep. A big question mark in this case is the blood spatter evidence, and when you look at the crime scene photos, yes, on the bat you can see round, large droplets which show that something was held over the bat and dripped blood, which possibly could have been when Oscar was moving Reeva from the bathroom into the doorway. However, there's also teardrop-shaped marks and spatter as if something hit the bat with high velocity. This takes us to the most controversial piece of evidence in the bathroom, which was the fallen magazine rack. Now, it's a very heavily reported misconception that when Reeva was shot, she was cowering in the corner behind the toilet, which wasn't the case at all. Reeva was actually standing behind the locked door facing it when she was first shot. She was first shot through the hip, fell back behind the toilet and onto the magazine rack, which is where these mystery bruises allegedly came from. After she'd fallen back, Reeva was then shot a further 2 times. Now, many believe that the large bruises on Reeva's back, buttocks and the graze to her breast were caused when she fell back onto the magazine rack. However, these bruises could also be consistent with the shape of the end of a cricket bat. Was she beaten or did she merely fall? We don't know. Another two factors that were completely ignored in the investigation of this case was a large dent in a steel plate next to the couple's bathtub. Where did that come from? We also had the cricket bat, which the rubber on the handle had almost been completely torn off, as if done so in a struggle. So what do we have? A vicious murder or a tragic misunderstanding which ended in violence? However you look at it, Reeva was still gone, and her once happy family was left in tatters from the news of her death. June, Reeva's mother, is in a practically catatonic state, and her father cannot stop sobbing. They wanted to know who had taken their bright, funny, ambitious daughter away from them. And when Oscar Pistorius was arrested for the premeditated murder of Reeva Steenkamp in 2013, it seemed like they may finally get their answer. This trial was one of the biggest ones that South Africa had ever seen, and I actually even remember the trial and liken it to the likes of the O.J. Simpson's case, where literally everyone had their own side of the story. People were very passionate. They were either on the side that Oscar had no clue who was behind that door, or they believed that he was a cold-blooded murderer who killed Reeva. There was definitely supporting facts on either side. The next-door neighbours of Oscar Pistorius said that they heard no arguing, no yelling until the 4 shots had sounded out, and then which they had heard Oscar screaming for Reeva. However, there was 2 neighbours who lived a little bit of a ways away who said they heard differently. They had heard a man and woman arguing and then a woman screaming before 4 shots were fired. But could they have perhaps mistaken those shots with the bat swinging against the door? And is it possible that the door was knocked down before Oscar shot through it? Safe to say, no, because the 4 shots had been fired through the door before it was knocked down by the cricket bat. There was no way that the door had been knocked down prior to the shots being fired. It's more possible that these neighbours who were living nearby had mistaken Oscar's screaming for that of a female. But we had to ask the question, was our lovable South African hero capable of this kind of violence? Oscar's on-again, off-again girlfriend of 6 years, Jenna Edkins, certainly didn't think so. In fact, she leapt to Oscar's defence when he was arrested. Jenna Edkins would go so far as gushing over her ex-boyfriend merely 24 hours after Reeva's body was discovered. I would just like to say I've dated Oscar on and off for 5 years. Not once has he ever lifted a finger to me, made me fear for my life. All I'm saying is let him speak. Let his side be heard without jumping to conclusions. Love and thoughts to Reeva's family. You have all my family's love and support. Love and support, Oscar. People must stop jumping on the bandwagon with such hurtful allegations. Oz is the loving, amazing, inspirational person we know him to be. Not only did his ex publicly support him, she rushed to his side when he made bail for Reeva's murder. And she does kind of give me the vibe of those women who write to mass murderers in prison. But I can change him. In fact, it would later be discovered that Oscar had in fact met up with his ex the day before Reeva's murder. However, before we label Oscar an innocent man, one of his ex-partners and 2 British journalists would not share the same warm and fuzzy feelings for him as his ex. His ex-girlfriend Samantha Taylor, who dated the athlete for 18 months, said that during their relationship he was extremely violent and controlling. If he read a text message on her phone, and yes, he would read through her text messages and found something he didn't like, he would physically attack her and bite berate her in the process. In public, if she said something that he didn't like or she was acting improperly, he would pinch her to let her know that it wasn't acceptable. Probably the most terrifying situation that Samantha claims Oscar put her in was when she did something to displease him. He had the worst punishments. He would lock her in his home, having cleared the pantry of all food, so that she would be starving, locked in this house for days at a time until he saw fit to return. Another anecdote provided by 2 British journalists, and don't worry, I am taking this with a grain of salt because journalists, but they claimed that Oscar told them a bizarre story during an interview about a time where he accidentally knocked down a dog. The stray dog was dragging itself because it no longer had use of its hind legs, and Oscar decided to calmly get out of his vehicle and shoot the dog in the head. He said he calmly walked back to his car and drove off. I'll say it once, I'll say it twice, I'll say it thrice. If you can kill a dog, you can kill a human being. So which one was the real Oscar, and what possibly could Reeva have done to have spurred on his fit of controlling rage? Well, it was discovered that 2 days prior to Valentine's Day, Reeva had actually attended a coffee lunch with her ex-boyfriend. Warren Loud said that she met up with him, and during their innocent meet-up, just chatting as friends, she would receive several phone calls from Oscar, to the point where he said, "Should you call him back in case it's an emergency?" To which Reeva replied, "No, everything's fine," which gave him the impression that Reeva was used to experiencing this kind of harassment. Warren would also state that after the meetup, he and Reeva exchanged a few friendly text messages. Is it possible that Oscar, playing up to old tricks, read through Reeva's messages and found something he wasn't happy with? Could it be that these messages made Oscar realise he didn't have the hold over Reeva that he thought he did? Warren disagrees actually, because he said on the few occasions that he met Oscar, he was a really friendly guy and didn't seem jealous to be chatting to Reeva's ex-boyfriend at all. But we do have those WhatsApp messages. However, Oscar's attorney said during the trial that if you've got 90% of someone's text messages are happy and loving and caring, but only 10% are nasty and vicious, shouldn't it be the 90% that matter? No, it doesn't work like that, because one message saying don't wear this, don't chew gum, don't talk to your married friends' husbands, that one is one too many. Reeva's parents would feel the exact same. They said that the relationship in their minds had never progressed physically. Reeva hadn't even introduced Oscar to them. However, the Valentine's card that Reeva gave Oscar would suggest differently, as in this card, she decided to tell him that she was in love with him. So here we have the 2 Oscars. Controlling villain or national hero? Which one was it? Well, in September 2014, when Oscar was found not guilty of premeditated murder, but guilty of the lesser charge of culpable homicide, it seemed like we may finally have our answer. Or did we? Because in 2015, only 1 year later, that charge was overturned, and after much deliberation, Oscar Pistorius was found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to 13 years in prison. An extremely light sentence, I'm sure you'll agree, for that charge, but Reeva's family were just happy to have any sort of jail time at all. 2 things that really hung in the air like a bad smell for me whilst watching the trial was the reactions of Oscar. I felt like they were extremely melodramatic, and they seemed almost timed when certain pieces of evidence would be shown to the jury. Not only that, there was other things that really didn't sit well with me, such as Oscar's fear of intruders. It was very highly publicised that Oscar had reacted this way because he was so terrified of burglars entering his home from his childhood experiences. However, do we remember that Oscar stated that the patio doors to the home he was sleeping in that night were left wide open whilst he and Reeva slept? There was a balcony leading out from those doors. Did he not think that it was possible for an intruder to to climb up onto the balcony and enter through those doors. Would someone like me per se, who is terrified of home invasion, ever sleep with a window open, let alone 2 French doors directly in front of my bed? No, I wouldn't. And finally, the recreation of the crime scene, which was shown in court, of Oscar running from room to room, calling out for Reeva, pleading to God to save her. Not one tiny tear shed when he was calling out the woman's name that he shot and killed and knew would never answer him. The media sensation totally forgot the name Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp in this case, and I'm here to make sure that we all remember who the real victim of this crime was. She was a beautiful law student who had her whole life ahead of her and was really well on her way to protecting women who would be left in this kind of circumstance. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Do let me know what you think in the comments box below, especially if you're from the South Africa area. Is it a crime that you think you know the answer to, or are you unsure like me? If you enjoyed it, please give this video a big thumbs up for me. It really helps my channel. If you're watching for the first time and you're thinking, who is this Andrea Zuckerberg lookalike? I kinda like her. Then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you each week. If you want to know what I'm up to, feel free to follow me, not home or to the shops because that's illegal, on Instagram at Megan True Crime. I'm also 95 and I finally have a Twitter page. Yay! It's at Megan True Crime. I love you all so much, and please remember to lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and also don't sleep with your patio doors open. Follow the link in the description box today and visit glassesusa.com. See ya! Please ignore the situation on my head. Bye.